priesthood nation in 2003. The Ottomanian intervention and Baptist intervention precising the new mass was sent to the seminary by some group. My seminary is in the Augustine Middle Seminary, just. So I got really that particular intervention, and to God be the glory, I now discovered that something was wrong. So our liturgical professor is by name Father Peter Ochu from just Diocese. So I asked one day in the class, why was the priest actually backing the people and facing the altar? And he said, oh, mine in those days, the priest faces the altar and back the people and saying something, people don't know what he was saying. That was all that was explained. In those days, the seminary has to be very careful how you ask questions because they may mark you out as Christians that I come to know. So in 2003, I was ordained Catholic priest by His Excellency, the Most Reverend Dr. Michael Apochi, the Bishop of Diocese. So I got talking with him. I was his secretary, bishop secretary, and later on became his finance administrator. And I told him that this mass is prayed. And this time, Father Gregory Obi has already started doing the mass and has informed us that the mass is possible. So I told the bishop, and he went to Michigan in America, and he met a group and told them that he would like me to come down to come and learn the mass with them. Unfortunately, I was very young. I was only 26 plus, and they felt that if I go to America with all the ups and downs in America, I may not be able to face the situation of America as a young priest. So he declined it. But in 2007, when several people came on board, I decided to ask for sabbatical leave after I became 7 years in the priesthood. That was 2000 and, I was in 2003, that was 2010. I asked to go for sabbatical leave. And this time, I celebrated my first traditional Catholic Mass. It was very hectic because I was going on my own. That was in St. Anne's Chaplaincy one evening. That's when I first did the Mass. And due to its difficulty, I never really continued, but I kept on reading. And the conservative band was in church, and I tried to preach traditional Catholic principles and traditional Catholic teachings. So in 2011, after, of course, in my parish now, because I was a dean, that's the dean, the head of the deanery in Aguila. They call it Aguila Deanery. Yes, they call it Deanery. I was a dean. And I had 5 parishes under, with so many outstations. So I was in one of the outstations trying to open a new mission in the diocese, and I decided to officially take the altar, facing the altar to the world, and began the National Catholic Mass. I was visited by the Societies and Pastors Attendants who I made contact with at this time, with Father Dudiche, Father Anatrona. They came to my parish, and they actually came to see my bishop. That was in late July. He was the bishop, and the bishop said, okay, it is what he wants, go with them. And I said, but my Lord, it's not about going with them. I just want to go and learn. At that time, I was not used to the deep-seated politics in the church and how priests were treated badly, who tried to seek the traditional Catholic Mass. I was not used to it. And so I was feeling very, very uncomfortable with the saying, go and join them. I said, but I don't know them. I said to go and learn the Mass. I was just 7 years in the priesthood. And so I never really had that experience of how to leave one congregation and join without join another congregation. I don't know them. But they were very, very hospitable. They wanted me to come and learn, as earlier mentioned. So I was asked to hand over the parish, which I did. And for 4 good months, I was abandoned. No stipends, nothing, all because I seek the traditional Catholic Mass and I want to know it. At this time, of course, no protocol has come out for 2016, 2007, 7 July, but the bishops were not implementing the documents. And The document is stated clearly, any priest that wants to learn the Mass can also go to a particular place to learn it. So I now decided to, on my own, now meet the bishop, discuss with him, but he still refused. And he now asked me to bring forth my mother. Now, she's not educated per se, but she's a barrister, in quotes. She now asked the bishop, there's another very, very good, that was in the late August, before I traveled in September. Are you not the one that told them on the day of the ordination that they should practice what they preach? This thing is my son. Let me say it in a local language. This thing is my son have discovered. Is it wrong? Just say, no, it's not wrong. If it's not wrong, why not create a place for him to give to those who want it? And Bishop told her that if you do that, if he does that, the same people will be the one that will be complaining. Because people are not used to this Mass in this place. And now to my mom is just Abah, and he's not ready for this Mass in his diocese for now. So, I already knew the Mass, and the theology that goes with it, that I'm ready to learn, and decided to report the 10th to inviting me. So, I took the bull by the horn, because I already asked political leave, and he was not granting it, but he asked the society superior that came that I can go. You see, Shamdeli also visited, but he couldn't see him, he traveled. So I now left this country September 3rd, 2011, to South Africa. Then from there, I went to, after spending 5 months in the Priory, in South Africa, they call it reports in South Africa. I now went to Australia, the seminary in Goulburn, Holy Cross Seminary in Goulburn, to continue my studies, besides about the 10th. Then in September, the next day, Bishop now called. He called the superior because I gave the superior for that Gregory, is his name. I gave the superior the bishop's number and everything, and we were communicating. We were communicating with Bishop. So the Bishop now called and said, I should be coming back now. The nuncio wants me to see him. So for the rest, it's a trick, it's a trap that should not go. But I said, the nuncio. Now, you have to understand what I'm trying to do. I was saying that, an opportunity has come for me to speak with the hierarchy of the church, which I was deprived of. Because I read the life history of Archbishop Sept and understood that whenever Rome calls, he answers. But before the consecration, Rome called and he did not answer. He went ahead and saved tradition. By doing what? By going ahead to ordain those bishops for the faith and for the morals. So that was very, very significant for me. But me, I was looking at it from the level of, if I was this call by the nuncio, Kasuda is his name, at that time, if I was a call, then I was able to express myself. So I paid my flight myself, and I came down to Nigeria, saw the bishop, then went straight to see the nuncio. I'm just cutting it a little bit short because there are more details. I was so shocked when I went to Abuja to see the nuncio. The meeting, all the way from Australia to Abuja, you can imagine, did not last for 30 minutes. And this is what the Archbishop said, Kasuda is his name. He said clearly, so when I asked, what about small pontifical? That's a white man's problem. I crossed my lips, I'm not married. It's a white man's problem. Small pontifical, white man's problem. So about church Catholic Mass. Look at all the nonsense taking place in the Muslim church. So, the church is moving, So I felt very disappointed. When I came back home, I was still celebrating the Catholic Mass. I never stopped celebrating it. So, something little bit happened that I don't know what I can express to you. Maybe something mistreated me. That I should not step the power again. I was told that by Father Bevin. I should not step the power again. Why? Who knows? Because I answered the nuncio's call. So, at this time, in Point, the fraternities in Peter were already in, what do you call it now? They came through for the Shono Restus in Umaka in Ourladyofmtcarmelusa. So, I was asked once.
If you were forbidden to go back to study St. Vincent Priory.
Yes.
But And you have to get from Joseph's power bank, because that's what we've done.
Okay, good. So I was now, and I was asked to go and see the bishop of Olu, Bishop of Tiger. So I went to see the Everestus. The Everestus is Shawu, who was some priest, but later on joined Fraternity St. Peter. After he went to America and came back, he joined them, and he just said, bring back the mass home. So I now went to see Bishop Gregor Chaya. So I went to see him, and he told me categorically that he brought this mass to his diocese. That I should go back to my bishop and negotiate with my bishop on how I can get this mass. We split now, but that's what he said to me. So I felt a little bit, not really confused, but I felt that, I was struggling to bring this mass to the people. I haven't learned the mass, and unfortunately, I was not given the opportunity to bring the mass to the people. So I stayed down to 2013 for one full year, celebrating exclusively the Catholic Mass. Then on Pentecost Day, 2013, I prayed. I felt that, okay, now, there was no mass, because at this time in point, the society of the past attends, yes, in principle, this was stated clearly, in principle I say, the traditional, the mass may be valid, but intrinsically evil. So, may be valid, but intrinsically evil. I was not so much at home with it. So I said, okay, I will celebrate this traditional Catholic mass and keep celebrating my traditional Catholic mass. The fact is this: the Bishop had to suspend me officially in 2013 at increasing mass, because at that time he has already told me, okay, go ahead, celebrate the traditional Catholic mass privately. That is myself and I privately. And the Novus Ordo Mass to the people publicly. I still refuse. I stood my ground that I want to do the Catholic Mass for those who want it, because they must be Catholic Church. So, the church did not go ahead because we had to negotiate and discuss the thing. And later on, what happened was that on Pentecost Day, in the parish called St. Mary's Parish of Tupo, where I was stationed, I was a priest in residence. All of a sudden, there was no priest in residence mass that in 8 o'clock mass was sold. I was around. So they called upon me, and I just went, and that was how I started celebrating the Nostro Mass again, thinking that nobody can force me to do what is evil. I was not given communion in the hand, of course, I cannot do that with my training, and my homily was purely, now get it straight, purely traditional. And the people who really wanted to do the faith were comfortable with that, but the other people were not comfortable with it. Because if you are skimpily dressed to the mass, I will not give you communion. I stopped people from doing public launch in the church and all kinds of things. So I was struggling with maintaining the faith and at the same time giving the mass to the people while celebrating the traditional Catholic Mass privately. So from 2013 down to 2020, that's how many years? 7 years. I struggled with what they call compromise. It's not easy. I tried my best to see how I can fit in the morality of the Catholic doctrine, the dogmas, the Novus Mass, and before man and God, it was not working. It was the Mass. The Mass was the problem. The more you try, the more you get all kinds of reactions. All kinds of reactions. So it was so terrible that I couldn't see why I couldn't have a way with the people to bring them to the true faith. It was a Mass. It was a Mass. So in 2020, January, Father Angelo was very, very influential. And this time, Father Peter Scott, on the 30th of the 10th, had come. He loves Africa, he loves us, and he wants us to truly have our way. I've been meeting with them in Paris. I go for retreats in Enugu, and at this time also I was making contact with the fraternity of St. Peter. Fraternity of St. Peter Superior told me clearly during the ordination of Father Charles for the fraternity of St. Peter. Father Charles was ordained for the National Catholic Mass and for the fraternity of St. Peter. The superior of the fraternity of St. Peter told me clearly that either I join the SSPX or because they don't have time, they don't have space for me in the fraternity. Clearly, this was what he said. That's what he said. So I got stuck. I said, oh, could it be that the noble pseudo priest cannot become a traditional priest? You know, because I was not putting this up in the diocese, and all the compromises, complaint in hand that had just begun through Ebola virus in 2014, which I did not give, and I was silently, not officially suspended at the fracas of the bishop in the cathedral when I was working there. So you can imagine the drama that took place. Because he said, I will give to those who receive on the tongue, and he will give to those who receive, I will give to those who receive on the hand, and he will give to those who receive on the tongue. And I told him, my Lord, I cannot do it. And he told me on the altar in the cathedral, so the first cathedral, let us see. So when we went to the altar to distribute the Holy Communion, guess what happened? All those who came, I asked them to bring forth their tongue. And they brought forth their tongue and they received the host. So I was bound as a meeting pastor from September to November during the Ebola virus in 2014. There are so many things that happened because I was not budging. But later on, I got to understand that the noble pseudo mass cannot fit in to traditional principles, which is very, very clear. To the dogmas of the Catholic faith, the noble pseudo mass cannot fit in. There is no way it can fit in. It was a clear-cut distinction. It's a way from the Catholic doctrine and the Catholic dogma. So I was something they call, I was a prisoner of conscience. Prisoner of conscience. So when Angelo van der Putten, who was now working in Umaka in Olu, discussed with the members of Lagos Archdiocese, and the Archbishop now demanded that I come and take care of the induct mass in Lagos Archdiocese. Many of you are not aware of this. Now what was told me clearly was to be a kind of a counter-attack on the SSPX who were already staying in Yaba. At this time, the faithful of SSPX were already making waves in Lagos Archdiocese. So the Archdiocese was inviting me to come down through Father Putin and other faithful to come and help them out. Come and help them out in the Mass. Meanwhile, Mr. Patrick O'Kay, most of you know, has helped almost the traditional Catholic priests to get what they want. The Mass, and he was trying to balance everything up with the hierarchy of the church. So, I came down to the Lagos Archdiocese in January, and I met the Archbishop. And I was very, very happy that I will come and work in his Archdiocese. I also met the Nuncio, Monsignor Anyabu in St. Leo, and they were also happy that I should come and assist them because the people are demanding for traditional Catholic Mass, and they don't really have a priest in Lagos Archdiocese who will help them. Now, this is a drama. The bishop felt I was the one that went ahead and negotiated to come and work in Lagos Archdiocese. When you compare Lagos Archdiocese, it's a metropolitan city with Otukpo. Otukpo is a minute town, while Lagos Archdiocese is a big town with lots of parishes and potentials. So just like in your diocese, you refuse to do what you want to do for tradition, but in Lagos Archdiocese, you are going to have a bigger crowd and everything. So I said, no, my Lord, I prefer to even work in the interiors. At this time, I was a dean, and also I was the finance administrator of the diocese of Otukpo for almost 7 years, and also a president of a mission. So I was unofficially transferred to come down to Lagos Archdiocese. So I met the Archbishop, that was last year, to the 2nd September. I met the Archbishop, and guess what? Then encounter took place between me and the Archbishop Alfred Martins at Dewale, the Archbishop of Archdiocese of Lagos. It was so interesting. Say, Father, you are welcome to my diocese and you are the Archdiocese, and you'll be attached to a parish, and you will take care of the indoors mass in a Balinde. The school is in a Balinde. But I want to ask you a question. What is your take? This is the actual speaking now. What is your take on communion in the hand? Will you give or not? Take a deep breath. My Lord, what does the church teach about communion in the hand? So that time I prayed a lot of writing in the church. I said, oh, Father, please, will you give? I said, in conscience, your grace, I will not give. Okay, Father, with that, okay, we'll think about it, but I don't think you need to walk in the archdiocese. Thank you, your grace. There's a little bit of discussion still, but that's not important for now. So, and now, this is blessing, and I came back home for 3 months. Now, my last Lucido Mass was 8 September, on the birthday of Our Lady. 8 September, that's my last Lucido, just like the other time too. So my last Lucido was 8 September. At this time, I was teaching other priests, like Father Patrick, Abah, and other priests. I was teaching the traditional Catholic Mass, and people come to me, and then meet. People started saying that I was a spy. I was not really going to stay. They were saying that already. Because things were so different. I was always in my castle. I was always trying to make sure I did the Mass as best as possible in conscience, but it was not working. And I knew it was not working. And I knew one day I would certainly leave. So when the coronavirus pandemic came out, I was celebrating Mass in my parish till the SSS, the State Security Service, was sent after me. And this was on Easter Sunday to stop celebrating Mass for the people. So I told the people, I'm celebrating this Mass for those who want it. And if anybody wants to come, they can come. So many of them got to know the National Catholic Mass during the pandemic, the so-called pandemic. You know, that's when many people came to know the National Catholic Mass because they will come to my chapel where I'm staying and they will come and attend the Mass. So, after I attended the Abah, I came back home for 3 good months. I was still working as a first administrator, I was still a director of the diocese. For 3 good months, I was not joining them, of course, and I was waiting explicitly to the Catholic Mass, and I was not posted officially as a priest resident. Then, between the 3rd of November, I got a letter from the Chancellery that I was posted to St. Jude's Parish, to go and work there. So I told the parish priest that this is my stand. I asked the bishop to give me a place for those who want the Catholic Mass. There is a Mass I want to celebrate now, because I asked them they should clarify all the shortcomings, all the shenanigans, all the sacrileges going on in the Lucido Mass. By this time, they already imposed the communion in the hand in all the parishes. In all the parishes, they already imposed it. It's not an option, you must sit on the hand. And me, I cannot give you the hand. Conscience, they know very, very well. So he'll mark a place of those who want the Catholic Mass so I can be celebrating Mass for them. And here's what happened. He said, no. I said, okay. So the parish priest of the parish, St. Jude's Parish in Tupo, for that very for that Kenneth Ode, said I should do what the bishop says. If not, I cannot work in this parish. Doesn't happen. I said, okay. So I got a place, courtesy of my friends, they rented a house for me. I started staying there, waiting. As I am till now, I'm still waiting for your official decision on my case. I'm ready to sit with any hierarchy to discuss these issues. I am not scared, I'm not afraid. In conscience, I know after death is judgment. After judgment, either one goes to hell or one goes to heaven. And I want to go to heaven. And the Catholic Church, the one holy Catholic Apostolic Church, has given me the opportunity to know how to fight for my faith. So, as I am now, I'm still waiting for any debate by any authority, be it Rome, be it the hierarchy of Nigeria, to debate on the stand that I'm taking. Because it's truly Catholic, I don't think there's any error in it. The traditional Catholic Mass is a Mass of the Holy Roman Catholic Church, and I'm ready to die for it. And I feel strongly that every Catholic, true Catholic, who wants this Mass can have it. That's my story in a nutshell. Thank you, Your Lordship.
And then what your advice, Father, you tried to work with the Novus Ordo for 7 years.
Yes.
And what did that do with your faith? And what made you find
It doesn't destroy my faith because it was not working. There was so much compromise in it. They say one thing and they mean another thing. You are all double talk. And there was this tendency of as if they hate the Catholic Church and they hate the traditional Catholic Mass.
And then what about the help of the Society of the dealing with Father Scott superiors? How has that been? What's your reaction there?
Yes, Society of the Pancras, wonderful set of people, but unfortunately, I started noticing a kind of a shift. Because you go to them, they're not coming out clearly as they used to be before. They're coming out clearly. And so, it was not direct, but you know something was wrong. You know, it was worth the fidelity of Peter. When we started about the tent, I felt they're supposed to stand for what they believe in, as the Archbishop did, even with Rome. One of the shock I got, of course, that I've discussed with some few people, is that okay, Rome lifted the excommunication of the 4 bishops. Why? Why did it? Was it doing something that was wrong? If not for that ordination in 1988, would they have had anything going on for them today? So they say Rome lifted up. I was still surprised. I was asking the question, who negotiated the lifting of the ban? Who negotiated it? Up to now, I'm not so clear who negotiated it. I don't know. My Lord, you are citing the competent priests.
Bishop, I think Father Scott was saying that there was a unilateral act of Rome without the Society of St. Pius doing anything. And we woke up one morning and realized that we're no longer excommunicated. However, that is 100% false. There were dealings with Rome. From 2007, 2009, 2011, there were doctrinal talks with Rome. And then there were dealings with Rome with discussion. And that Barbara Ratzinger said, ask the 4 bishops must write a letter asking for the decree to be lifted. And unless they write a letter asking for the decree to be lifted, they can't lift it. So when Father Scott says to you that it was a unilateral act, that is completely false. Basically, it's a lie. Bishop Soleil, Bishop Williamson, Bishop Tizzy Gallery, and Bishop de Galaretta, all 4 wrote a letter at the end of 2008 saying, please lift the decree of excommunication. Then the excommunication decree January 23rd, 2009 was announced as lifted, and that was for the purpose of destroying the Society of St. Pius X. I think you said earlier, when speaking to Father Peter Scott, he admitted to you, that you asked Father Peter Scott, what is the purpose of this excommunication? On lifting the excommunications, and Father Scott admitted, obviously Rome lifted it in order to bring us into the Novus Ordo and to destroy us.
Yes. Exactly. That was what Father said.
Father Scott admitted that to Father earlier today, right?
Yes.
We spoke with Father Scott today. And then, but we are not going to be destroyed.
Yes.
Please, Your Excellency, I want to ask, why shouldn't I go for the Novus Ordo Mass?
You should not go to the Novus Ordo Mass because it is an intrinsically evil Protestant Mass. The Novus Ordo Mass does not express the true theology of propitiation that Jesus Christ is truly dead on the cross in an unbloody manner. It is not, it sacrilegiously changes the very words of the consecration itself. It left out the key doctrinal statements in the Old Mass, which make it clearly clear that it's a worship of God. Cardinal Taviani and Bocci said in the Taviani Convention, 1968, the only official commentary on the new Mass. Paul VI asked for a commentary on the new Mass before it was released in 1969. Cardinal Taviani and Bocci gave an answer to Paul VI, which is called the Ottaviani Intervention. And that answer says, this new Mass, which by the way, they only studied in Latin, did not study the vernacular versions of it. This new Latin Novus Ordo Mass departs from the Catholic theology of Mass in whole as well as in detail. Basically, it's a ceremony designed to water down and help you lose your faith. It is very similar to Luther's Mass in the 1500s in Germany and to the Mass of Cranmer in the same century in England, whose both Masses were created to destroy people's Catholic faith. Now, after 50 years of the new Mass, guess what's happened? No Catholic faith, and hundreds of millions of Catholics all over the world. It worked. The new Mass effectively helped destroy faith. It's a sacrilege, the new Mass, and no Catholic should attend it, no priest should celebrate it, no one should be involved with it, and one day it'll have to be eradicated completely from the church. It's not a Catholic Mass.
Okay. So, on that same level too, and I asked the start this early morning, I asked him as David, why is Rome giving concessions to say about the 10th, as if all they have been doing in the past was a little bit wrong. For example, allowing them to hear confessions, allowing them to annul marriages. Because I got to know that many of them were also involved in negotiating marriage tribunals in the sense of how they and the diocese. So all these things are actually shocking me. Yeah, I'm trying to come to tradition officially, and here we are going back to the Novus Ordo officially. So I was a little bit confused, and I seeked clarifications, and I was not given. So there was a kind of a clandestine movement going on within St. Paul the Tenth.
But also this movement of shutting down Catholic tradition.
Yes.
One of the great scandals we just learned about was the shutting of the convent in Kenya. The missionary sisters, Jesus and Mary, were shut down last year in Kenya.
Yes.
By the Lazarus extent, there were 25 sisters and postulants and novices. 25. They decided it was no longer useful. There were multiple 10 professed sisters, and then there were novices and postulants, over 25, and they were shut down and thrown out. That's an example of killing tradition, not spreading tradition. So we have to stand firm to the faith. Furthermore, the teaching of the Society of St. Vincent on vaccines. What should you do about these vaccines and about the coronavirus? Well, these vaccines are intrinsically evil. They should not be tolerated. And yet the society says you may receive the vaccines if you don't have it. And that several priests have already received it, and people have also maybe received it. And the society is not standing up against the vaccines. And the reason why it isn't, it's stated in 2011. Rome, modernist Rome, in 2005, agreed that it was acceptable to have vaccines from aborted fetuses. Therefore, Rome has spoken, we follow Rome. Now, that's modernist Rome speaking, and the Society of St. Vincent should not be following modernist Rome. So we have a problem of a Novus Ordo theology within the Society of St. Vincent, the acceptance of its teaching on the vaccines being one of the reasons. I think you guys don't have to close here. But Father Samuel tried to work with the Novus Ordo. It didn't work, it doesn't work. You also recognize the battle is not a battle about the Mass itself. The Mass is an important piece of the battle, but the battle is a battle about the faith, not the Mass. And so Father is persevering in that faith, and he has not yet received the great help that he thought he would from the Society of Sanctified Attendance. In fact, Father Scott has been secretly helping Father, but not without the permission of the superiors. And in 2012, Father Scott secretly supported Father Giselle and I, and the next day, Father Giselle preached about it in a sermon on the internet, and then Father Peter Scott got in trouble. But then he stopped supporting us. So he did know what the truth is about fighting against the modernism of the world. Now he has to secretly keep his faith. But the problem is we can't secretly keep the faith. We have to publicly keep the faith. And, and so that's a problem now in the New Society of Sanctified Attendance. Yes.
Now, based on what happened, and the question he asked, the nobles coming into the church, was it accidental or was it planned, or is it the work of who?
Okay, the battle of the false conservative movement. Was it accidental or was it planned is the question. This movement of this breakdown of tradition in the Fraternity St. Peter and now in the Society of Sanctified Attendance. The answer is it's planned. The purpose of the conservative movement of Fraternity St. Peter, where Father Angelo Vanderputten was ordained in the Society of Sanctified Attendance, told Father Samuel, say the new Mass, I give communion. Is that also give communion?
Give it because you are doing that right.
Yeah.
You are doing that right.
Therefore,
you can give.
Give communion and have.
The bishop have said that, or you are supposed
So
to.
the Novus Ordo priest saying the new Mass, named Father Samuel, refused to give communion and half. Then the traditional priest named Father Angelo Vanderputten, during St. Peter, told Father Samuel, you should give Holy Communion in the hand in order to be obedient to your bishop because you are a priest of that right. So the traditional priest is telling the Novus Ordo priest to give communion in the hand. That means they're not working for God, they're working for the devil. Same thing with the Society of Sanctified Attendance. There hasn't been that open help to help them come back to tradition. Now what should happen, now that I've showed up on the scene, now that they've had confirmations, now they've had some help, now all of a sudden they should come forward and say, oh, we're going to be willing to help you. The only condition is stay away from Society of Sanctified 10th Marian Corps, stay away from our Bishop Pfeiffer, who they call Father Pfeiffer because they don't want to accept me as a valid bishop, and that stay away from him, and we will give you what you want on the condition you stay away from him. Already a threat has been made to Father. If Bishop Pfeiffer comes to your place, we can no longer cooperate. There's only one problem with that. He didn't cooperate before. So no longer cooperate means stop cooperating, as if you were cooperating before. They weren't cooperating before. So so now it's no longer cooperate, now it's complete cutting off, and then they should offer to, very often they'll offer to help or something afterwards. Now that I've come, they'll try to offer, oh, now we're going to help you. We were going to do it the whole time. They didn't. So we have to hold the Catholic tradition, hold the Catholic faith, and recognize that changes within the Society of Sanctified Attendance and within the Fraternity of St. Peter are not accidental weaknesses, but they're a planned, ordered movement to bring people from Catholic tradition back into the Novus Ordo mainstream church. Yeah, yes.
Please, Your Excellency, like Father said, I have some friends like my office, where I work. I really sympathize with one of my friends about this issue that is going on in Nigeria now. Forceful restitution of communion in the hand. They are complaining. I told them, let them come to tradition. In fact, everywhere they go, because even in dance, they are forced to receive, even when they don't want to receive. In fact, one of them said, he got to the point that when he brought that his done, the priest refused to give him communion.
What you were saying?
No, what I'm saying, Father, your expression is that, how can you explain to people why they must not receive communion in hand?
Okay, first of all, I mentioned an example a few days ago. I think I mentioned, imagine you hear this story. A man runs a stop sign, runs through a red light. After he drives the red light, he goes over a school and runs over 27 children and kills them. He then drives into a church and then blows the entire church up. He gets arrested. He goes to court. And the judge says, why did you run that stop sign? And why did you run that red light? Don't you know that there's a law against running red lights and you could get a fine? Now, forget about the 15 children, 27 children that got run over by the car. Forget about blowing up the church and murdering all the people in the church. Doesn't even bring that up. Then there's a big scandal because this guy ran a red light. If they run red lights all over the place, we're going to have chaos. Let's make a campaign to make people stop at red lights. That's the same thing as let's make people receive sacrilegious communion on the tongue rather than sacrilegious communion in the hand. Now, when you receive communion on the tongue of the new Mass, you receive a sacrilegious communion. Now, when you receive it on the hand, you also receive a sacrilegious communion. It's just more sacrilegious because it's in the hand. But it's a sacrilegious communion on the tongue of a sacrilegious Mass which is displeasing to God. This Mass has caused the death of hundreds of millions of souls. And it's a blessing to be told you receive communion on the hand because it's helped people wake up. You say, wait a minute, there's a bigger problem than communion on the hand, just like there's a bigger problem than running red lights. When you kill a bunch of children in the school and you burn down a church and kill everyone in the church, those are the crimes you need to be put to death for, and those are the crimes you need to be tried for on the trial. So likewise, the crime of the new Mass and the crime of the new theology and faith that it stands for is infinitely worse than communion in the hand. It's like comparing running a red light to murdering 27 children in a parking lot. There's no comparison. So in fact, it was a blessing to Nigeria that the bishop said no more communion on the tongue. Now, see, so it is a great sacrilege to receive communion on the tongue. It's a small sacrilege to receive communion on the tongue. On the hand. It's a grave sacrilege to that new Mass. Those prayers are spitting in the face of God. There are Jewish prayers in it, humanist prayers in it. There's heresy in the missal itself. Well, on February the 24th, at the Feast of the Chair of St. Peter, it says in the new Mass, O Lord, you built your faith on Peter's confession of faith. That statement is a heresy taught by the Lutherans. It's a direct heresy contained in the new Mass missal. So when you say that Mass, you're actually accepting that heresy. So we don't accept that. We don't accept that at all. So it's a blessing, this communion in the hand thing. Absolute blessing to help people wake up. It's just like, one of the reasons why cancer is such a terrible disease? Because while you're dying of cancer, you don't feel sick. You don't feel any problems of health at all, and you're actually dying. Because when you catch cancer in the beginning, it's easy to kill it. What happens is, you go to the doctor, I've got a backache. No, you don't have a backache, you've got cancer. And it's in stage 4. It's too late. So it's much better a disease, you can feel the pain in the beginning, so that you can address it. So what has happened is, we're in stage 4, stage 5, killing the faith of Catholics throughout the whole world, and now they feel a backache called communion in the hand. And then, wake up. So it is a sacrilege to receive communion in the hand, because Mother Church feeds us, and the mother feeds her baby on the tongue, in the mouth. Mother Church feeds us. And to sacrilegiously take it in the hand means we're not accepting Mother Church feeding us, but we're feeding ourselves. We're not feeding ourselves. Mother Church is feeding us. So even when a priest goes Holy Communion, on the tongue. When a bishop receives Holy Communion, on the tongue, right? So we do not ever receive communion in the hand, even when we're priests and bishops. My hands were anointed twice. As a priest, I was anointed with catechumens. But then I was consecrated a bishop, and they took the chrism and anointed me again. They're doubly anointed. But when I'm sick and when I'm dying, when I land on my deathbed, and I can't say Mass, a priest is going to bring you Holy Communion, and I'm not going to touch it with my consecrated hands. I'm going to receive it on the top. The Mother Church is feeding me with God Himself. I'm not going to hold out my consecrated hands that have been consecrated twice. I'm not going to do that because I'm not celebrating the Mass. I'm receiving Christ. And so, of course, it's a terrible sacrilege receiving in the hand, but nothing compared to the sacrilege of the new Mass itself. And that's why it's a great grace to see that and to step away from it completely. That's what we have to do. We have to do that. And that helped Father. It was that communion in the hand issue that both Father Patrick and Father Samuel, it helped both of them say no to the new Mass, and then both recognized it's not a problem with communion in the hand. It's a problem with the new Mass. And it's a problem of Vatican II, because why is the new Mass a problem? It's not because it's a different kind of liturgy. The new Mass is a problem because it expresses a Protestant faith, not a Catholic faith. I know we must go. Anything else there before we pack it in?
You know, Your Excellency, people say that, okay, when we go to Mass, we hear the word of God, the priest preaches to us. You know, the people give excuse why they must attend the new Mass.
Right, but when you say, it's like this, we know better than God what we need. But probably God knows better than we know than what we need. God will always give us what we need. Our ancestors have gone many months and years without the holy sacrifice of the Mass, without Holy Communion, all over the world, including priests have had to go without the Mass, even priests. But we can't go 1 second without faith. We can't go 1 second without charity in our hearts. And faith, hope, and charity and sanctifying grace are essential to us. And one of the great saints of our times is Saint Joan of Arc. You know what she was told? They brought the Holy Communion priests into her prison cell. I want to give you Holy Communion, Joan. She wanted to receive Holy Communion. By the way, you have to sign that document that says St. Michael didn't talk to you. You have to lie about St. Michael. You have to lie about the visions, and you can receive Holy Communion. She had to say no to Holy Communion in the presence of God Himself. You know what Mass that priest celebrated that morning? The Latin Tridentine Mass. Same Mass I celebrated right now. He brought a truly consecrated host of our Lord, and he was an approved Catholic priest. And if she had received that Holy Communion, she would have gone to hell, and she would not be Saint Joan of Arc. She had to refuse the true body, true blood, true soul, and true divinity of Jesus Christ, because the condition of receiving it was lying about truth and God. She said no to Holy Communion. And then they cursed her. You're definitely from the devil because you're refusing Holy Communion. And they walked out with the host. And that priest, unless he repented, is now in hell. And she is a saint. The devil can use communion as a temptation. He can use the Mass as a temptation. We don't accept those things. I remember when I was ordained a priest in the Society of Christ 10th, when we used to be hated. I wondered, and I was 23 years old, about to turn 24, will I ever say Mass until I die? Will I ever be allowed to celebrate one Mass in any approved Catholic church anywhere in the world without sneaking in when nobody's looking? Will I ever be able to just say a Mass in an approved Catholic church? I don't think I ever will. And now I've been a priest for 27, 28 years. And guess how many times I've said an approved Mass in an approved church? 0. But St. Peter, who was the head of our church, and the first pope, he never said Mass in the church either. St. Peter said Mass in people's houses like this, St. Peter said mass in the catacombs, in the cemetery. And then one day they captured him and he was martyred. St. Peter couldn't tell you what a Catholic church building looks like because he never saw one. But he's the rock upon which our church is built, because it's not built on the buildings. It's built on the faith. And so I'm not the only priest. Many of us priests never been able to say mass in an approved church with approval. We get tired sometimes. I want to say mass in an approved church with approval. Yes, all you have to do is stop condemning Vatican II so boldly. I almost said one mass in an approved church. The priest in Madras, India said, you can say mass right here in this church, the main 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock mass. You can say that mass on Sunday and there's no requirements. So I was shocked. Father Giselle was my superior. He said, well, I'll say the mass. I said, okay. Right before we walked into the mass, there were probably 1,000 people there. Right before we walked in, the father said, oh, by the way, at this mass, you cannot condemn Vatican II in the new mass. Father Giselle was going to walk in and say the mass anyway. I said, Father, today you're going to go in and say the mass. Next Sunday they're going to have scheduled mass, and I'm supposed to go in and say the mass. I'm not going in to say it. Because when I say the mass in that Nova Scotia church, I'm going to condemn Vatican II, condemn that Nova Scotia church, and condemn everything Nova Scotia. That's what I'm going to do. But the condition of me saying mass here is I can't do that. Therefore, it will be a mortal sin for me to say mass here. Because if I say mass here and do that, I'll be lying to say the mass. I can't do that. And if I say mass and don't do that, I'll be lying to God. So I'm going to choose. Am I going to lie to the priest and offend God that way? Or am I going to lie to God? I'm not choosing between lies. I'm saying mass in the school. And then Father Giselle realized he was just being caught, and you're right, so we did not go and celebrate that mass. But they got us at the last minute. That's what they do.
Yes.
You walk, oh, by the way, what do you mean by the way? And we almost did it. Because it was the last minute, people are there, we can finally say the mass, and they put the condition out, which is a mortal sin. They put the condition, which is compromise. That's what they did to St. Joan of Arc. And we can't do that. Yes?
But I want you to explain all this with full freedom.
Yeah.
Because the parents, status the parents think. They don't like using full freedom. So,
Better go ahead and put the camera on. They talk a little bit louder so they can hear. Yeah.
yeah, I'm asking if you can explain this with full freedom. Or does full freedom not have anything to do with humanity or liberty of humans?
Okay, the last thing with the co-primum has anything to do with validity and validity of the new mass. Actually, the co-primum doesn't have anything to do with the validity or invalidity of the new mass itself. The new mass itself is a totally new rite, which means it's not subject to the co-primum. And the new mass is intrinsically evil and not a rite of the church because it contains error and heresy and it's anti-Catholic. So the new mass is just condemned, period. Co-primum, what it does is it enunciates the truth of faith that the Latin Tridentine Mass can never be ended till the end of the world, and that every Latin rite priest has a right to celebrate it and cannot be stopped, which is a separate thing. In other words, new Mass is poison and poop. It's bad already. No need of co-primum. But co-primum of 1570 of St. Pius V tells us and tells all generations that the Latin Mass, which is not from Trent and not from St. Pius V, it was from Jesus Christ and from St. Peter. That Mass is the perennial Mass of the Roman Catholic Church, and no Roman priest of the Latin Rite can ever be prevented from saying that Mass until the end of the world, unless he's a murderer or has some other sin or crime, which for the reasons of crime he'll be prevented from saying that Mass. But no priest has the right to be stopped, other than crime, from singing that Mass until the end of the world. That's co-primum. You see what I mean? Yeah, but not directly. And then, also, the one thing the Book of Mormon does indicate, though, the new Mass can never be a Latin Rite Mass. It is not saying it is not a Latin Rite Mass. It is not the same rite. It's an absolute lie and a sacrilege and a great evil to call the Latin New Mass part of the same rite as the Latin Mass. This is a great lie and great wickedness of Pope Benedict XVI. Pope Benedict XVI, the Summa Pontificum, gave a great spit in the face of God when he said the new poisonous, sacrilegious, satanic Mass of Vatican II, called the Novus Ordo Missae, is in the same rite as the Latin Tridentine Catholic Mass. That's like putting Barabbas and Christ together, calling Barabbas and Christ to be equal one to another. This is a grave, grave evil. A very grave evil. And so the problem now is SSPX is no longer speaking out against it. In fact, earlier today when Father Samuel was speaking to Father Peter Scott, he said, we don't agree with everything in Summa Pontificum, but we're very grateful for it. And we're not, and it's a step in the right direction when a priest follows it. That's not at all the case. That's not at all the case. The Summa Pontificum is the compromise of faith. And so when the Summa Pontificum was creating a greater confusion in the Catholic Church rather than a greater clarity. It's true that the priests began to celebrate the Latin Mass, but under the wicked conditions. And therefore it has to be condemned. And only the Traditionis Custodes helps people understand how bad Summa Pontificum is. Just like the communion in hand helps people understand how bad the Mass is. But anything else I want to add there?
Yeah, finally, I would like to encourage all traditional-minded Catholics to seek for the group that truly and sincerely adhere to the principles laid down by the Church. And I thank in a very great way His Excellency, the Most Reverend Joseph Pfeiffer, for clarifying all these doubts. The way his, of course, the way his father founder, the person of Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre, had always done. No compromise. Stand for the true Catholic Mass. Do not deviate from it. Stand for it. And ensure that you are ready to die for it. Because it passes on the true Catholic faith and morals. The true dogmas of the Catholic Church is preserved not only in that Mass per se, but it's preserved in the teachings that goes with it. So we thank you, Your Lordship, and we pray that God is going to strengthen you in your apostolate as you receive your blessing.
I'm going to give you a blessing and move forward to that. Benedictum Deum Patris et Filii et Spiritus Sancti, et unius et reposa mani et semper. Amen.
Amen.
So we can go into the picture pages here.
Oh,
Right. Okay, bye.